could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello everyone, today we're meeting Harmony Woodington. She is a personal evolution specialist. Hello Harmony, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, so let's start our conversation with diving into your personal journey of becoming the person you are today. So what led you to discover your true passion in life? How did it start for you?
Yeah, I think everyone has really an origin story that helps to create awareness that informs what they end up doing with their lives. And I am no different. I was raised with parents that had their own childhood stories that really created a lot of dysfunction throughout our family because neither of them really did the work to resolve their issues. And so it created a very unstable home growing up for me. So my father was born in southern Wales. And as a result of the Second World War, southern Wales was heavily bombed. And it was a very difficult, depressive place to live in. And my grandfather fought in the Second World War and came home with PTSD in a time when PTSD wasn't recognized. And so all 6 of the children that he tried to raise in the state that he was in all ended up with serious mental health issues. So all of my aunts and uncles have all struggled with serious mental health problems. And it all became very apparent as we were growing up and seeing the struggles that they all had. My mother also grew up in a very dysfunctional, abusive home, her and her 2 sisters. And as a result of the abuse, it was so extreme that the trauma was actually stored in the back of her mind and she didn't remember it. And for anyone that knows anything about trauma, sometimes the trauma can be remembered and can cause issues for us. But sometimes it's so extreme that the brain has a capacity to actually store that information in such a deep, dark place that you don't remember it. But it doesn't mean that it's not driving and affecting you and causing issues. So with my mother, they ended up discovering their issues when they went to go see a marriage counselor, and that the professional who was working with them surfaced my mother's abuse. And as a result of that, it really kind of changed my home environment. And at the time, there was really a lack of understanding as to how to deal with people with the type of trauma that she was suffering and the symptoms that she was dealing with. And at the time, it was called multiple personality disorder. Today, it's called dissociative disorder. And a lot of people in the past actually used to get misdiagnosed with schizophrenia because the symptoms can actually seem very similar. Now, my mother not being able to get the support that she actually needed at the time because of what she suffered from, at 11 years old, I decided to become her counselor because I just wanted my mom back. And I'm not going to say that it was the right thing for me to do, but nobody was stopping me. So I basically was hanging out in my mother's bedroom, helping her to process memories of trauma and helping her to integrate those parts that were holding on to that trauma to try to get my mother back. And my father, I did everything I could to support him as a result of growing up in the depressive environment that he was in. He also struggled with extreme depression and suicidal thoughts as well. And so, of course, I did everything I could to help my dad find a sense of self-worth and to invest in himself. And ultimately, I wasn't able to fix either of them because it turns out it's actually not our job to fix anyone. It's not our job to rescue anyone. And what I ultimately had to come to the conclusion was that I couldn't take anyone's free agency. I couldn't fix anyone, and I had to let people walk their own paths. And that's been one of the most difficult lessons, I think, for myself. If I could have a superpower, it would be to take people's free agency.
Oh, wow.
And I know it seems really counterintuitive, but there are so many people that are in pain and that struggle. And if you could literally walk them through the path to get resolution and they could come out the other side, and then you could hand them their free agency back and go, did you want to go back to where you were before? No, yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, you can have your free agency back now. So I've had to understanding how important free agency is, learn how to let my family go and be where they are and focus on my own healing. Because ultimately, I'm the only one I can control. I'm the only one I can be accountable for, and I am the only one I can rescue. And so letting go of my family and letting them be where they were, I walked a path to really create resolution for myself and created awareness around all of the experiences that I had had and the experiences that my parents had. And the story that I tell is not one of, villainizing my parents because they did the best that they could. And ultimately, whatever path they choose is right for them. And they played their roles perfectly to create the awareness I have in my life today. And tripping around looking for answers in so many different places over almost a decade really created an awareness of how important it was for me to create an expedited path for other people to be able to get the resolution that I got over a decade in less than a year. So that was really where the passion and the drive was created to do what I do for a living. And ultimately, to be able to do that, what I ended up learning was clinical hypnotherapy and energy work, which helped me to be able to understand the language of the mind and body. And so now working with clients, I take them through all aspects of life and I help them to learn how to self-communicate and how to understand the language of their own mind and body, and how to then create a relationship of trust with themselves to not only receive the information, but act on what it is that they're learning and doing to create a life in service of themselves, one that makes them happy and doesn't perpetuate the negative, toxic cycles that have continued on through so many generations up until, the one today that the client is living, working with me. So we can continue on in future generations, passing on empowering teachings, using that awareness that's created from the trauma that we've experienced to expand and help the other generations that are up and coming expand. So really my passion is to flood this earth with love. And in doing that, I support each and every client that I work with, creating a beautiful self-loving relationship with themselves. And through the butterfly effect, that'll eventually permeate the whole world. I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but we'll see.
Yeah, I see you a catalyst for change where, we first start with changing ourselves. And like you said, it's not our job to fix others. We have to be focusing on what life do we have right now and look around us. Everything is our own creation, right? If we take that responsibility, knowing that up until this point, this is what I've been through. This is who I am, and those were my actions, and I own all of them, right? Knowing that because of that, I'm the person I am today, but I also have that power to change if I am not satisfied with what I'm having or what I'm doing or who I'm being, right? Again, it's in my control, in my power to do something about it. But it all comes back to self-awareness. You have to recognize that, you have those negative thinking pattern. And again, maybe you just been passed on having them. It's not your fault. It's okay. But with you having that awareness and a way to interrupt them, that's where it's very important, because we're talking about next generation to come. If you're not going to be the one who will disrupt it, it could go on and on. You don't know how long, right? So again, like thinking first about helping yourself, and with that deeper connection and understanding of who you are, who you can be, you also will affect others in a positive way again. And it starts with you.
It absolutely does. We don't realize, how many people we're actually hurting when we help others from a place of sacrifice. You know what I mean? Because women in general are taught to sacrifice everything for their family, but they end up suffering. So they're helping others to their detriment, and they don't realize how that is a negative perpetuating cycle that needs to stop, because what we should be doing is working out 5 days a week. We should be eating healthy. We should be getting enough sleep. We should be meditating, listening to guided visualization, spending time with friends, having a no brain day, and really rejuvenating and taking care of ourselves. And that way, when we do show up, we're full of energy and love, and we have an abundance of overflow to share with everyone around us, instead of being miserable because we're totally taxed and drained. And then generally what happens, which is what my mother did, she made us feel guilty because she sacrificed everything for us, right? Because the person is in resentment, because they're not sharing from a place of abundance, they're sharing from a place of lack. And every single woman I have worked with, I've had to support them overcoming that and change that cycle of giving from a place of detriment to giving from a place of abundance. And when they give to themselves first, the love and the support and everything they provide for everyone around them is completely and totally different. And those who are at the receiving end of it, who know me, thank me for supporting their mom or their dad or their lover or whoever it is, because there's no more resentment, there's no more backlash, there's no more guilt, there's no more anything associated with what's being given, because it's being given freely from a place of abundance.
Right. And like you said, too, not expecting anything in return. You just give because you want to give, right? You don't have any reason to give. With that unconditional way of sharing with others, you have nothing to make them guilty for, right? You never sacrificed. You had so much that you wanted to share.
That's exactly it. And just think about the times when you've been compromised, when you've shown up and you were sick and weak and you had no energy, but you still showed up, you know, when you were really tired, but you still showed up. And then days when you meditated in the morning, when you did some guided visualizations, when you wrote some affirmations and you had a really healthy breakfast and you had a nice cup of tea and sat in thought for 10 minutes before you did anything. And then you go about your day. How are you showing up? Right? You might say and do the same things, or you might actually not at all. Because when we're compromised, we tend to be a little grumpy, maybe, right?
Right.
But really, when you think about it, so much more of how you're communicating is energetic. Like 75% of what you're communicating is energetic, right? We judge people like on their energy and how they're walking and carrying themselves before they even speak a word to you. Right? We've got a bead on essentially who a person is, and we've made a judgment call before they've even opened their mouths. So being aware of how much we're communicating energetically, if we take care of ourselves and show up from that place of passion and abundance and self-love, and you've done all the self-care so that you have all of that abundance to share, the person that you're coming to share that energy with is going to be significantly more receptive, because they're actually going to receive all of that information, but they're going to be receiving it subconsciously. And so they're not even really realizing from a conscious level how they're computing and responding. It is happening, however, right? And so just observe for yourself on those days when you're compromised, how you show up and how people respond to you. And on those days when you actually consciously choose self-care and do things for yourself to start your day in a positive way, and then you show up and how people respond. Because the evidence is there if you actually take a moment to observe it.
Right. We just don't really pay attention how important for us to have that time for ourselves to recharge and replenish our energy and to be able to show up at our best. And we have to, prioritize our mental health, knowing that I'm the one who is responsible for my health, and I'm the one who's going to give myself that time to heal if I need to and to grow.
Absolutely. Don't wait for somebody to give you permission, because it's not going to happen. In fact, this world is set up, particularly in North America, to drive you into the ground. We're meant to work long hours. We're meant to show up. We're meant to pop pills if we have to. If you've got a headache, there's a pill for that. If you've got anxiety, there's a pill for that. If you have depression, there's a pill for that. If you're overweight, there's a pill for that. There's some kind of a quick fix for everything. And the problem with that is we're plugging it up and ignoring it. And the problem that we are very aware of is that there is a massive epidemic of depression, anxiety, obesity, and all sorts of issues. Mental health issues are rampant today. Too many people that I know have landed in the hospital as a result of massive panic attacks and nervous breakdowns. And it happened at work. And I'm pretty positive that was not the intention. They were not planning on having a meltdown at work. That's about the worst time that you can have a meltdown, but they didn't get to control that outcome because we are taught to treat pain like it's a negative thing. We are taught to treat emotions, certain emotions, as though they're negative. And yet pain is actually your body's way of communicating with you to tell you something. Emotions are also self-communication. So anger in itself, I was talking about this with my girls in group coaching. Anger in itself is not a negative emotion. It is just an emotion. When we allow ourselves to be with it and to vent it in a safe space and to honor it and source it and allow it to release and figure out what's going on, then it's never going to come back, is it? Because you released it. But if you bury it, if you deny it, if you shut it down, then it's going to come out in a situation you don't want it to, and it's going to hurt somebody else. So is it anger's fault? No, it's our fault for not having emotional intelligence and honoring that emotion when it showed up, and we could have vented it and released it in a safe space. Same thing with pain, right? It's going to show up as a headache, but if you ignore it, it's going to turn into a sledgehammer and you're going to end up in the hospital because you just had a panic attack or a nervous breakdown. It starts as a whisper. And if you ignore it, it talks, and then it yells, and then it's a sledgehammer, and then it's a brick wall, right? And everyone that you talk to that has hit the brick wall will tell you the sequence of events that led them to the brick wall, right? Because we're human and we tend to learn lessons slowly, or we tend to learn them the hard way, right? And this is why I think it's really important for those of us that have walked down this path to share our stories in an unfiltered way so that people can look at it or listen to it and go, yeah, I don't want a sledgehammer or a brick wall. I'm going to listen to the headache, and I'm not going to take something for it. I'm going to figure out what's going on in my brain that's causing the pain and alleviate it. I'm going to vent it. I'm going to honor it. I'm going to work with somebody that can help me create resolution for it, right? And you don't necessarily have to not show up to work. What I want you guys to understand is, yes, we have schedules. Yes, we have jobs. Yes, we have businesses. Yes, we have stuff we have to show up for. And if you are proactive, you can be significantly healthier. If you shelve and honor that stuff when you get home from work, it doesn't have to turn into a sledgehammer or a brick wall. And if you have systems and processes, plan B, plan C, plan D, if you are compromised that are put in place to help you to still fulfill on your obligations when you are compromised, your job doesn't have to suffer. Your family doesn't have to suffer. But you need to set those systems and processes up in place when you are healthy, so that you can employ them should a situation show up that is compromising you.
That's totally right. And I agree with you saying about setting up those times for yourself. Also, like, this comes back to being disciplined. And, if you have that structure where you know what to do in any type of scenario, like you said, plan A, B, C. So you're not lost when it actually comes and you don't know what to do, because if you wait until this point, it's just a very high chance for you to not, respond in the right way, but react, right? But we don't want to let ourselves be reactive. So when you set that plan in place and you know how you're gonna
act when the time comes. That's where you are, again, in power. You know what to do. You know how to resolve this issue efficiently, fast, easy, no pressure. It's just, again, like seeing those emotions rise up and not really labeling them as being good or bad, negative, positive, but like you said, it's just an emotion. And we don't have to say what polarity it is. It's just the way it comes, and I'm honoring it. I'm letting myself feel it, all the way through. And I know this emotion would not kill me if I just let myself feel it. And actually, it will go away, but without me even trying doing it, but shutting it down or like suppressing it, looking ways to escape from it, any type of addiction or what else it might be that you think will help. Again, it's temporary, right? It will come back again. But with you doing it, once, but fully being in the process and letting it go, maybe it's not going to come back ever. So what's better? You have to be also courageous enough to know that it's nothing but emotion, and I can do it. I can just feel it. I can let it go, and I will help myself in a way.
Yeah. And I mean, I want to, say to all of you who are listening that we have been set up in a world that has taught us to dissociate from our emotions. So if you are walking that path, know that you are one of many, and this is how our system is set up. It's not your fault. So be gentle on yourself as you're listening to this, because we're not here sitting in a place of judgment. We're here sitting in a place where we were doing the same thing, and we figured out a healthier way to honor our emotions and to process them. And as a result of releasing them and realizing that when you do honor them and release them, that they don't come back. And when you are feeling emotions, it turns out it's something new. It's actually beautiful evidence of how when you do the work, you are getting resolution. And I'm not going to tell you that you're not going to experience the same emotions, because there really are only so many emotions that we can experience. But the situation that is creating the emotions, well, that's a new button. That's a new trauma. That's a new thing that you've sourced. And when you feel that and you're aware of that, and you know that you are expanding, and you've released a button, you've released a trauma, you've created new awareness that has helped you to expand one step closer to what it is that you're meant to be doing, and you're having healthier interactions with those around you because you're less reactive, it is motivating. It is incredibly motivating. Just remember that when you have those emotions, not to be hard on yourself. And that's one of the biggest lessons that we need to learn, is actually learning how to celebrate when emotion is surfaced. I actually call it a breakthrough, not a breakdown. We're programmed to think of it as a breakdown because we're not functioning properly because we're in emotion. Yes, it's true. We don't have logic when we're high emotion. That being said, it's actually not something to beat ourselves up for, because you're having a breakthrough. This is you surfacing something that needs to be honored. And to signal to yourself that you have worth and value, what you want to do is actually celebrate that, give yourself space and time, and choose self-loving actions, things that are signaling to yourself that you have value and you deserve to be loved and nurtured when you're high emotion. Then when you've processed the emotion, you can source and work with through journaling, or work with a practitioner that can help you to source what's coming up. And then you can release what needs to be released, right? So when you understand the systems and processes to honor your emotion, and you know how to hold space for yourself, and that you understand through honoring the emotion, through celebrating that, through self-loving yourself, that you're actually nurturing your relationship with yourself and telling yourself you have worth and value, why would you want to do anything else?
Yeah, that's what life is all about. We need to understand our value here in this world, and each one of us has gift to give others, right? And we are here to be successful. We here to be the best that we can be. But the only people that not allowed to be ourselves is us, right? So we are limiting ourselves to be that person. So again, recognizing those emotions and as you mentioned, letting yourself to feel through them, honoring them, celebrating them, and not putting yourself down in any way. Don't be harsh on yourself, because sometimes we even, more kinder to other people than we are to ourselves. We always criticizing ourselves or finding some negative things to think about. But in reality, there is so much we can be grateful for, and to love ourselves and to appreciate who we are. And I think with daily practice, reminding ourselves that we've been through a lot of events, and here we are, brave enough to kind of see that that was our path to greatness, and we still on it, and we continue doing it, and recognizing that we are in charge in our lives, and making ourselves time every single day. You have to put that in practice, that structure where you see you have time to really replenish your energy, to be in that abundant state, and to be able to heal with what you might had in the past, so it's not hindering any of your progress as well. So that's important to point out. And is there any advice to our listeners in terms of finding that mindset where you can be at peace and to really start seeing thoughts that you have in your mind more clearly? So what are the practices that we can do on a daily basis, and and start incorporate as the habits so we can achieve that state?
One of the most simple tools that I actually developed to support my clients, which I realized was really at the foundation of everything, is the relationship that we have with ourselves. My clients' ability to invest in themselves, to integrate what I was teaching them into the real world, had everything to do with how they felt about themselves. And so they may have had enough wherewithal to come and work with me, and yet their self-love was on the floor so low that they weren't implementing the work into the real world. They weren't integrating it into their real lives. So the work was only being done in the treatment room. And I started to ask myself, how can I help my clients be more successful? How can I help them to integrate the teachings into their everyday life so they can expedite their expansion and really change their everyday life? And then I got the message at about 3:00 in the morning. I was woken up and I got the download, and I put it on my notes in my phone because I voice to texted it. And I woke up in the morning and was like, I need to create a self-love journal. Now, what's really interesting about this is when you understand that your subconscious mind is what creates your reality, it's learning how to update your mental operating system that changes everything. Now, it is significantly more simple than you would think, because your operating system actually is much like your phone and computer. Now, think about how often that phone of yours updates. It's pretty often. And a majority of the time, it actually happens at night while we're sleeping, because we don't want the update to interrupt our fun during the day, do we? Right? Yeah. So when you think about that, when was the last time you updated your brain, any of the programs in your brain, right? This isn't a conversation that's had. It's not something we're taught. We're just functioning, living, reacting, most of the time not even thinking about what we're doing or why we even do it. A lot of the time when you ask somebody why they're doing something that's traditional, that they've done for generations, they don't even know why they do it or where it came from, right? But when you actually spend the time to trace it back and realize that so many generations ago, one country invaded another and brought their teachings to your country and forced it on your country, and you've been practicing it ever since, all of a sudden you go, hold on a second, that's not do that anymore. They're destruction that happened that brought that teaching to my country. I don't participate in that anymore. But the thing that's really important to understand is we need to bring that programming to the subconscious or to the conscious mind to shift it. That is a practice in itself that I teach my clients. Now, updating your mental operating system can be done very effectively through repetition. So our mind is reprogrammed using 3 different methods: authority, trauma, and repetition. I'm actually giving you 2 of the 3 with the book because an authority wrote the book and you're going to do something repetitively. So you're getting 2 out of the 3 because I'm not here to traumatize you, right?
Yeah.
So when you go through this journal, it's actually a very simple process where you just answer the questions that are in the book. And you do it for 5 minutes every night before you go to sleep. And when you do it at night before you go to sleep, it actually bypasses the bouncer or the doorman that's guarding the subconscious programming, and it goes right into the subconscious mind. And through repetition, you're reprogramming your mind for self-love. And then what ends up happening is because your self-love and your state and how you feel about yourself is raised, your boundaries and how hard people push you all of a sudden changes. You find yourself saying no to things that are to your detriment. You start choosing yourself more. You start wanting to eat healthier foods instead of binge eating stuff that makes you feel better. You go, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to eat something healthier. Or actually, I'm going to exercise instead because that makes me feel better. Right? You start to naturally, with greater ease, choose things that are better for you because you love yourself more. You value yourself more. These changes happen with ease without you even thinking about it because you were doing this for 5 minutes a night before you went to sleep. So that's one very, very simple, powerful tool that you can take and implement into your life that will make amazing changes throughout all aspects of your life. Listening to your internal dialogue is something that takes time. And my other book, My Birthday Goals Guide, has the exercise internal dialogue that actually allows for you to be able to spend a full month listening to yourself. And there's prompting questions, and each week has a particular topic that you're going to focus on, listening to your internal dialogue, and then you write down the answers to the questions so that you can start to observe, because we've actually been taught to dissociate from our minds, dissociate from our feelings, right? So it takes time and it takes practice to do that, which is why I have the process taking place over a month. And ultimately, if you can work with a coach like me to really have support to learn to listen to your internal dialogue, it's going to be significantly more supportive because you've got somebody that can tap into your mind and can help you to develop that relationship. But if you're not in a position to do that and you want to get a book that'll support you doing that by giving you prompting questions, go to Amazon, look up the Birthday Goals Guide. My self-love journal is also there as well. So those are things that you can utilize at home that are very affordable, that can support you being able to start to create that relationship with your subconscious mind, to learn how to really tap into your power.
Yeah, it is so powerful. And like you said, it's very affordable and a lot of people could see for themselves. Again, it's just not about you listening what other people saying, but you have to do the work. It will require your time. Even that 5-10 minutes before you go to sleep, some people could come up with tons of excuses. Why would they not do that, right? But with you really making that decision and being committed to that process, because it will take time, nothing will change, right? So we have to first be responsible for that change and to start implementing it on a daily basis, and then eventually, like you said, you're gonna see everything has started changing around you, and without you even realizing how that happened, right? But you were just doing your part. You were just committing that time and continue doing that without thinking, how it's gonna look like or how can I facilitate that process. But taking those steps one after another, and then everything could change in your life in a matter of months, right? So usually it takes some time, but it wouldn't take you long to see changes. And it will be subtle changes first, but then especially when you interact with people, you will see the way they perceive you has changed because of who you became now.
Yeah. And the thing that's really a really beautiful example of that when you think about it is exercising consistently. You can't go to the gym once and expect a six-pack, right? It just doesn't work that way. And our energy and our subconscious mind, every aspect of us, really, there is a process to see that shifting happen. And so we create a routine so that we can go to the gym and exercise our muscles, and what's happening but micro tears, and then the muscles are healing stronger. And that process, we can't really expedite it, because if we do, well, we're ripping our muscles to shreds and we're getting injured, right? This is how you injure yourself. When you work out and you cause those micro tears, that's going to create a stronger muscle because it's going to heal stronger, right? So we implement and we integrate these systems and processes to create stronger muscle. And you're not going to see the changes after the first gym session. But if you do it consistently and you haven't seen some people in maybe like 6 months, right? And then, I don't know, there's a holiday get together or something like that. And you get together and see some of your friends and all of a sudden they're going, what have you been doing? You look amazing. And you're like, really? Because you're seeing yourself every day. Of course you're not seeing it. But they're floored at the changes because over a 6-month period, your body has changed so much. The conformation has changed. And you might not even notice it if you step on the scale, because we know lean muscle mass is heavier than fat. So the scale might not have changed, but your body conformation may have changed a lot. And the observers that haven't seen you for a while are going to absolutely notice it. So if we use that as an example and employ that to create a routine to update our mental operating system, to nurture our mental health, to support our mental and emotional well-being, right? You're going to see little incremental expansion that is going to ultimately lead to you communicating differently, thinking differently, reacting less and responding more, being in a place of peace, being calm, cool, and collected, being self-loving and confident, showing up with a stronger, more glowing, potent presence that's pulling people's attention to you. You're going to be vibrating very differently. And you're going to walk in that room and everyone's going to go, whoa, what are you doing? And it's not because you're rocking a 6-pack, it's because you're vibrating completely differently. And they might not say, hey, your vibration is different, but they are going to say, what is going on? You're so different. You're just carrying yours. I don't understand what have you been doing? So you'll get a very similar reaction, but a lot of people aren't energetically aware enough to be able to consciously register that there's been a whole bunch of mental health, emotional, psychological work that's been done. But if you say, yeah, I've integrated some new systems and processes. I've been doing some stuff at night before I go to sleep, 5 minutes. And then I've started doing some stuff in the morning to set myself up for success in the day. I've created some new routines, and really it's only kind of like 20 minutes altogether, but I've noticed a big difference. And well, now you're looking at me and you're calling it out too. So clearly it's working.
Yeah, that's true. And again, like we're gonna hear that different reaction from other people. And like you said, with you looking at yourself all the time, you don't really see that change. But for those who didn't see you for a while, they will be able to notice. And it's hard not to notice when you're carrying yourself as a different person now. So everybody would be wondering what's going on. But again, like, you know, that it's you who made that decision. It's you who contribute that time every single day. Because why? Because you prioritize your mental health. And you know, it's like a muscle. It's your mental muscle you need to kind of train, and you are the coach to train your muscle, right? So put the systems in place and just follow the program and get to where you want to go, and you see for yourself how everything will change around you.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really beautiful is that everything is done for you and you just have to fill in the blanks. So I've made it as easy as it possibly can be for you. I mean, if you want the free version, you can download my free 30-day self-love challenge. That's literally just a one-page downloadable. You buy a journal and you fill it out all yourself. But if you literally want it to be as easy as humanly possible, and you just want to fill in the blanks, I've done as much of the work as I possibly can to provide the path, and you just have to answer the questions. And believe it or not, it will make a powerful shift. And it's important to understand that we want to give ourselves the time that we need to integrate one habit at a time, because around our birthday and New Year's, we generally tend to get really ambitious about changing our lives because we start to self-reflect at the end of the year, and we start to self-reflect when a birthday is coming, right? And so we'll create a list of all the things in our life that we want to train, and then we'll try to implement everything all at once, and then we get overwhelmed and then we stop. So if you create a list for yourself of things that you want to expand in your life around your physicality, your emotions, your mental health, whatever it is, finances, create that list and implement the one thing at a time. It's important to honor that you want to create an autonomic response for each thing on that list before you move to the next thing. Think about driving a car, right? When we first get into the car, it's intimidating. When we're driving around, we're focusing on everything intently and it's really overwhelming. But over a period of time, when we practice, we find ourselves in autopilot, wondering how we got there in the first place, right? Because it's now an autonomic function, which means your subconscious mind has a program that knows how to drive a car and you don't have to think about it anymore, right? That's what you want to actually do. So if you want to start exercising, do just that. Don't change your diet and exercise. It's too much, right? Just focus on creating a new habit of exercising. And it is said that 21 days integrates a new habit. That is hearsay. I want you to understand that your ability to integrate a habit is different because you have a different amount of stressors on you. You have a different amount of things that are overloading you. You have a different amount of tasks that you need to accomplish, people putting demands on you. So your capacity is going to be different depending on where you're currently at. So forget the 21 days. Ask yourself how much time you need based on what's going on in your life. It could take 20 days. It could take 40. It just depends on what is right for you. Now, I usually teach my clients how to self-communicate to figure that out. We're not going to teach that today because it's a process. However, you'll know when it becomes an autonomic response because you'll find yourself craving the thing, right? So over a period of time, you'll actually feel a pull and you'll be like, oh, I need to go work out. And you'll feel like you're missing something if you don't go do it. That's when it's a habit. That's when you know you've integrated it. When you feel like there's something wrong if you don't do that thing. Then when you know it's something you're doing with ease without having to think about it, then start with the nutrition and change your diet and focus on that, right? So one thing at a time, create new autonomic programs in your mind. And before you know it, you'll see your whole life shift and change. And at no point will you experience overwhelm or overload and quit, because you'll be working with how your mind reprograms itself. So it will happen with greater ease.
Yeah, and like you just mentioned, we don't need to stick with the 21 days, standard, what we all know about, because we're all unique, and the situation we're in, we have to be mindful that, it will be according to where I'm at, and that's okay. I give myself time, but with me making that decision and honoring that decision, I'm continue to do those steps that requires of me every single day, but focusing on one thing and making sure that that is at the level, like you just mentioned, where you start craving it, where you know that you implemented that habit. And that's maybe the time to move on to something else and incorporate another habit. Again, like that in order to be sustainable change, you have to come to the point where it goes like on autopilot, where you're not thinking about it, where you're not using that energy, to feel like you need to put more effort into doing it. But it actually, the way you operate, it's natural for you. And that's where that it's part of who you are now. And again, with the tools available, and thank you for creating the self-love journal, and I think a lot of people would benefit from it, because we need those type of tools that help us to structure our day and to know that we can actually achieve something we want. But first, we need to see that plan being kind of like mapped out, and us committing to that process and giving ourselves time, and being kind with ourselves, and knowing that nothing happens overnight, and eventually I will get there. So that's important to point out. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and wisdom. It was a pleasure talking to you. If somebody wants to connect with you, how they can find you?
So I have an amazing link on Koji that pretty much has everything. So I'll make sure that that you guys have access to that link, and it's got all of my books, including the one behind me, which is my bestseller, Create a Healthy Romantic Relationship, the Self-Love Journal, my Birthday Goals Guide, also a sign up for my book about to be published, which is going to be a bestseller because I like to project awesomeness, which is the ultimate guide to overcome anxiety, because that's a big challenge for a lot of people right now. So that's the biggest one that I'm tackling to support people really in being able to understand that there is a purpose for that anxiety. Just like I said before, all the emotions you're experiencing have a purpose. It's trying to slow you down to get you to pay attention to something. So you're going to learn how to honor that anxiety and how to actually work with it so that it is no longer an issue anymore. And we learn how to do that by honoring it. So you can sign up to get notified when that's going to be published. It's being vetted by about a dozen people, one of which is a psychologist that actually had to quit working because she had so much anxiety as a result of the stuff that she's gone through, that she no longer can function as a counselor, which I am incredibly grateful, one, to be able to support her getting her career back, and two, getting the feedback of somebody else that functions in the same world that I do, getting feedback from a powerful authority. So I'm incredibly excited to be able to reconcile all the feedback that I'm going to be getting on that book, to be able to really state that it is the ultimate guide, because it gave amazing people resolution and helped them to get their lives back. So you'll be able to check out all of those links, including some amazing deals that I put together. But literally, if I list it all, I'm going to bore you all to tears. So I'll send you the link and you guys can click on it and you can just go through and take a look at what works for you to engage with me. Everything from free downloads to working with me one-on-one. So whether you're literally, not in a position to be able to invest right now, but the only thing you can invest is time, I've absolutely got free stuff so that you can do that. If you're in a position to invest, to have somebody hold you accountable and work with somebody one-on-one, I've got your back there too. So it's completely up to you what level you want to engage and what your current capacity and situation is. And I honor and respect where you're at right now. So I'm here to show up and serve you based on what is right for you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I will include all the links in the episode description as well for those who want to check out and connect with you. And again, thank you for your thoughts and sharing your story today. It was very powerful. It was a pleasure meeting you.
It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for sharing your arena with me.
Thank you. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned!